It's Reagan and Ryan here. Welcome to this next video on your genetic test. So a lot of you have had either your blood drawn or we did the cheek swab. Some of you went through 23andMe, a lot of you went through cell science, and so what Ryan and I are going to do is just get you ready for this visit so it can be the most impactful time of your life. Well, that's a little dramatic, but hopefully it'll be very inspiring and it will open you up to this idea that genetics can really be controlled in a way. I mean, what's the purpose of this test?
We're trying to see how your body uses energy, uses nutrients from food, and also part of this test can show how your body can help to calm down at night. So the genes and how it processes nutrients, how it processes and breaks down neurotransmitters is very important for your overall physical and mental health. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here.
Yeah, and the biggest genetic pathway that we've looked at, I mean, you know when Craig Venter first mapped the entire human genome, this was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he put $500 million in resources into this. This test is just a couple $100, which is amazing, but we're not testing every single gene in your body. But what the researchers have found is that there's one gene, it's called your MTHFR, and this whole cycle called the methylation cycle that basically governs and protects all the genes in your body. So if you don't want your genes to mutate and become chronic disease like diabetes or heart disease or dementia, Alzheimer's, all those diseases that all of us, it freaks all of us out, then this is the genetic pathway that we have to support. If you look at it, so the methylation pathway, I'll just give you kind of a Reader's Digest version, but essentially what we're looking at is how well your body and your genes, your cells, how well your cells get rid of waste, because every cell in your body is going through this constant cycle of metabolism. So it's taking in nutrients and it's creating other products from those nutrients and it's creating energy and then it's performing functions. So your cells are very diverse. They're like these little tiny universes in your body. And each one of your cells, if they can clean up the mess, if they actually have a very proper way of methylating, that means they're putting nutrients on top of the vitamins that you're taking in so that the byproduct can be a substance called glutathione. What do you know about glutathione, Ryan?
Glutathione, I like to say it's like the master antioxidant. So it's great at helping to clean up waste product throughout the body and reduce inflammation. Those are some of the major key components to remember about glutathione. The cool thing is, as Reagan just said, the body reuptakes it. So once it's used, it can grab it and put it back into this cycle and spit out more glutathione. But it needs energy, it needs precursors to make more glutathione. So you need both precursors and you need a properly functioning cycle in order to create more glutathione. So a lot of times that cycle is diminished either from lifestyle choices or diminished mutations that we're going to talk about here in a minute. So what we do is we use the information to increase the effectiveness of that cycle and create more glutathione. We may actually be taking some glutathione just to cheat a little bit and kickstart that cycle, but that's one of the ultimate goals. The other thing that can happen if that cycle's not producing very well, you can create something called homocysteine. Now, homocysteine is an inflammatory marker. It's what we can look at in blood work and say, okay, your homocysteine level is pretty high, so that's a good indication that one of the cycles is out of balance, and you're not producing enough glutathione.
Yeah, and homocysteine is one of those inflammatory markers that, once again, it triggers the onset of these chronic diseases. So one of the goals that we have is for you to live to be 250. So, and no one's done that yet that we know of, but
close.
Yeah, the 122 is the longest living person ever recorded. So we're trying to double that number. But anyway, you have to keep this gene supported. So what I found with myself personally, and what I've seen with a lot of our patients is, me personally, I found that at night, if I go and do a presentation, which I do a lot of, at least 2, maybe 3 nights a week, depending on the week, I got home and I would just be ruminating. I'd go through every little sequence of that event, and then I'd just be up at night, I'd be restless. Even if I wasn't thinking about the event, my body was still revved up. And then I realized I had this mutation in my COMT, so I had to support my brain because my neurotransmitters were getting recycled all the time, and it wasn't just getting metabolized. And so I found that I was really kind of revved up a lot. And we've heard this with other patients. They have similar experiences. The other thing that we found is a lot of us have what's called the MTHFR mutation, which we're going to go over in a second, but that can diminish your body's ability to take in B vitamins. So you can end up with issues with your neurological system. A lot of you may have numbness or you get pain. Some of you have multiple issues with tremors, or you may be more susceptible to having memory loss. That's because your body doesn't uptake the B vitamins that are available to us in the environment. And the biggest thing that you want to realize is we're also going to share with you how damaging foods that are enriched with, like folic acid, enriched with B vitamins, enriched with whatever synthetic nutrients, or even the vitamins that you think are doing you good, are actually blowing up your methylation cycle. So let's jump into that.
Great. Yeah, this test will help shed light on a lot.
So let's jump into MTHFR. One of the big things that we're going to look at with MTHFR is how your body gets B12, because B12 is one of the most essential nutrients, and if you're over 70, which a lot of us, hopefully if you're going to live to be 250, we're going to have a lot of 70 plus year olds, but you're going to want to look at doing something besides oral B12 because you don't have the proper enzymes to break it down. So if you don't have good amounts of B12 coming in here, your MTHFR will have to get methyl groups and donate it and put it on B12. So one of the worst types of B12 that you can actually take, if you've got this mutation, even if you don't, I would still recommend avoiding it, but it's the type of B12 you find in most energy drinks, you'll find it in most supplements. It's called cyanocobalamin. And cyanocobalamin is a synthetically derived form of B12, but it doesn't have a methyl donor on it, which means it's really hard on your genetic pathway. So one of the first things you want to do is look at all your vitamins, get rid of any cyanocobalamin, and just start looking at something that's either methylcobalamin, adenosine cobalamin, or hydroxycobalamin. I know those are kind of it's a mouthful, but one of the things we look at is if you've got MTHFR, if you've also got COMT, there's a specific B vitamin that we're going to recommend for you on your visit. And this can radically change the way that you feel. If you take cyanocobalamin, if you take B12 and you feel really jittery and fried like I do, you know that's the wrong type. So part of what this visit will do is, we'll probably recommend some glutathione, but we'll probably also recommend a specific type of B vitamins, not just B12, but we'll look at all the B vitamins, B6, B3, all those are very important.
One thing to remember about this in particular, folic acid is another thing that a lot of foods are fortified with. You'll see fortified with B vitamins and folic acid. Now, folic acid is important. The folate group is important in this because that's what helps methylate the B vitamin, the B12, and then have it move on to this other part of the cycle. Now, using folic acid and as a supplement, and using cyanocobalamin as a supplement, it's kind of like putting crude oil into your vehicle. You know it's the right substance, but it hasn't been synthesized enough for your car to actually use it. So using things like methylfolate, which is already a methylated version of folate, and methylcobalamin, which is a methylated form of the B12, you're putting a fuel in your vehicle that your body knows how to use. It doesn't have to synthesize anything. Synthesization takes energy. So if you're already having energy issues in your body and you're trying to take B vitamins to ameliorate that, you're going to have to use more resources in order to use the resources you're putting in your body. I know it sounds a little confusing, but that's a good metaphor to think of why it's important to take the correct form of B12 and folate.
Yeah, the MTHFR is very critical for your inflammatory markers. So MTHFR will take all those methyl groups that have come through this lower cycle, and it will put that methyl donor onto what's called methionine. So methionine gets created, and then the byproduct of methionine is either what we talked about earlier, glutathione. So you have more glutathione synthesis, and there's actually been research that shows that just having extra glutathione in your body can reverse type 2 diabetes, and it can make your cells a lot more receptive. So if you have hormonal imbalances, and maybe you've tried taking thyroid hormones or progesterone or estrogen, well, one of the main problems could just be that your hormone receptor sites aren't taking in that particular signal, And so glutathione helps clean up the mess so that you can get better communication between your cells.
And we'll go up here to the COMT. This guy yellow, so there's one mutation in here. It really is important for methylation of your neurotransmitters, so breaking down neurotransmitters. So at night, if all your excitatory neurotransmitters are stuck in your head, like Reagan said, it helps break them down so you can keep calm. Methylation of DNA. DNA is one of those things that is pretty important. I think we all learned that in high school biology. And it happens every day. You know, we make new cells every day, and the blueprint for those new cells is our DNA. So if our body is reading the DNA incorrectly, then we're going to make our cells incorrectly, and that's what leads to things like cancer. You know, deformed cells within the body. So having COMT in line is really important for that as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful pathway. If you look at COMT, the xenobiotics, those hormones, those synthetic hormones that you're exposed to in the environment, any of the pesticides, the herbicides that fall into this category, plastics that you're consuming, all of those things have to get filtered through this COMT genetic pathway. And if yours is working properly, if yours shows up green, then that's awesome, because what that means is it's not necessarily going to affect your neurotransmitters, it's not going to affect your brain health. But if you've got any type of mutation, so this person, there's a heterozygous mutation there, so that means the ability to push those things through is about diminished in half. So they need some extra support. So one of the things I do is I take lithium about every other day, and I find that keeps that pathway open. Most of us are deficient in lithium. It's not in our water supplies anymore. Now, some of you may be thinking lithium for what type of condition?
Psychotic issues.
Yeah, schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia, thank you.
Yeah, and so we're talking small doses.
5 milligrams a day.
Yeah, so very small. We're not talking the heavy doses of that. And actually, there's a lot of compelling evidence that shows that if you're taking lithium on a regular basis, you're going to have more mental clarity. You'll feel happier. You have less episodes of depression or anxiety throughout your life. So lithium is actually one of the great things you can do for the COMT.
Another thing too that can be helpful, there's a whole list of these, and we'll go over them in your meeting. You'll get handouts of them, but there's a large group of foods that inhibit COMT that, you know, a lot of them are really healthy foods. You know, some of them are like broccoli and kale. So it's not that you need to stay away from them forever, but it's something for you to understand. Oh, this is the list of foods that may inhibit my COMT. So if I'm having a hard time, now I know these are the tools I need to focus on for certain lifestyle choices throughout the day, certain supplements like maybe L-theanine or lithium, and avoid these foods for a couple days so I know I can get my brain back on track.
Yeah, beautiful. So the beautiful thing about this is we're going to give you foods because foods will affect it. We're going to talk about a few different supplements, and we want to start you slow because one of the things that will happen is we're trying to get your body to detoxify better, to utilize the nutrients that you're taking in better, to help you make wiser choices when it comes to lifestyle and what you're eating and how you're behaving. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen is we want to start you slow, because what will happen if someone over-methylates, if they push it too hard?
It's like you've turned on the ability to break things down by 30 or 60%, and all of a sudden you have more waste product. So now your body doesn't know how to deal with that waste product, and you may have some adverse effects that we don't want. You know, some of the things we're trying to get rid of may come up a little bit, and then we just adjust the dose. And over time, those things can stop happening because you know your proper dose to keep your methylation pathway running evenly.
Yeah, and so some of the things you look for is palpitations, insomnia, irritability,
joint pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Joint pain. Occasionally you get a rash because remember, it's pushing your body's detoxification pathways. And in the past, we would call this a Hoxheimer reaction. So
right.
You're just detoxing, but now we realize
we know what it is.
With genetics, we actually have a pathway that we're pushing too hard. So these are things that we'll talk about in your visit. I hope this has been helpful, and I can't wait to see you when you're 230 and then 250. So we'll see you in the next video.